Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Final Whistle with myself, Sanani Mangisa. This past week, we celebrated International Women's Day, and no better way than Serena Williams to make a return to tennis. No controversy there, just clean winning, and she is into the next round of the Indian Wells. Please join in the conversation, hashtag Beyond the Final Whistle, and tag @GridSports. Today we'll touch on a variety of sport. We've got our regulars back, and I can tell you right now it's going to be a little bit heated. I bet every single Man United fan is gloating at the moment. They were on point yesterday when they beat Liverpool 2-1. And I'm sure my panel today has a lot to say about that. Gents?
I think let me start here. I'm a Liverpool fan. I was a bit disappointed with what happened yesterday. Klopp lost the game by team selection, picking Dejan Lovren and Trent Alexander-Arnold in that game. Lovren is the type of player that creates chaos in the Liverpool defense, and Jose Mourinho thrives on chaos. That chaos that Lovren created in the opening goal opened the game for Man United, and we couldn't recover. We know Jose can defend any lead.
Any lead. Yeah.
He basically played the rest of the game with a back six.
I think everyone expected him to park the bus right from the beginning because they were quite happy with 1 point. Take 1 point and go home.
They didn't necessarily park the bus. They played well the first 15 minutes, and that's where the game was lost. I mean, that kind of chaos. I mean, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a young boy, is a 20-year-old boy, and he was exposed, and Man United exploited Liverpool's weaknesses, and fair for them. I mean, it was a good win for them.
Coach BT, Jose's tactics worked yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, Jose, he lives for those sort of matches. You know, Colum likes to destroy. He always looks at the opposition and sees how he can adapt to basically destroy the other team's plan. And yeah, it worked. And it's always on the two well-taken goals by Rashford. So on that day, Mourinho's tactics worked.
For sure. I think it's quite telling of the league to see a good game like that when we sort of know that the whole championship is pretty much gone with Man City. But yet a Liverpool Man United rivalry game always dishes out some good football.
Yeah, it does. I mean, if I think about the game, I think to Thomas' point, the game was won in the first 30 minutes ultimately. You can't go 2-0 down against the Jose Mourinho team. And also give him the chance to, I guess, reorganize at half-time as well. It was almost two different approaches to BT's point. In the first half, I think he allowed his players a little bit more freedom. But from 2-0, I think the instructions were quite clear to close the game out, yeah. Which I guess is the controversial side of Mourinho with Manchester United supporters. I think a lot of supporters would have wanted United to go for the jugular.
3-0, 4-0.
But nonetheless, you know, for him it's another 3 points. And I guess if you listen to his post-match interview, he spoke about the fact that it's just another 3 points.
And he's quite happy with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Mourinho outcoached Klopp yesterday. That was so evident. I mean, I think when you saw the starting lineup and you saw Lovren in there, yeah. He was smiling because if you look at every Liverpool game this season when Lovren is involved, even the Spurs game when we lost 4-1,
chaos.
It's chaos.
Chaos is the word to describe it.
Chaos is a ladder for Mourinho. He's the Peter Baelish of all coaches in English football. I mean, I'm disappointed, but yeah, a loss is a loss.
Where does this leave Liverpool? We're sort of seeing Liverpool float between third and fourth, second and third in this, but there's still no trophy. And that's going to, you know, we're going to give Klopp some time, patience, next season. Where does that leave Liverpool fans and management?
Look, we're still in the Champions League. They're still in the Champions League. And for them, I think they're eyeing second place, which is now near impossible considering what happened at Old Trafford. Liverpool will finish between third and second. They've got an easy schedule going on. Like the schedule, if you look at the only tough game they've got is against Chelsea. Yes. They've played all the big teams, so if they continue beating the rest, then they'll be fine. They'll finish top 4.
And as a Liverpool fan, you happy with that?
I'm happy with that because I'm looking forward to next year, which has been happening for the last 20 years.
every season we're looking forward to the next one.
We've got new players, we've got Navigator coming, he might be the difference. And we need a striker and a goalkeeper. But
What about the defense? I think that's where the
The curse of Dejan Lovren, guys. I think we need to just ship him off somewhere to Italy or something. Because he always costs us games. He's cost us 15 points this season.
I want to bring in something here. You touched on you need a goalkeeper, and we've heard that rumors that De Gea at Man United hasn't signed a new contract. Could he be on his way to Real Madrid? He does want to go home, as he said.
I think this is a rumor that kind of rears its ugly head every kind of season. We know that he almost left and the famous fax machine broke down. He ended up staying at Manchester United, and I think that fax machine itself deserves a trophy at United.
Yeah.
It deserves a statue because he's been absolutely brilliant. I can't imagine where United would be without David De Gea.
Yeah.
in the championship.
Most likely we'll be fighting out in mid-table or lower mid-table.
They're going to do everything they can.
They have
keep
to.
him.
They have to. I think one day he will definitely leave Manchester United. I just don't think at this time, because he actually did sign a new contract just after the whole situation happened with the fax machine when he was supposed to go to Real Madrid. He signed a contract, I think 6 weeks later, which took him, I think, to 2020. So I guess he's still got 2 years left on his contract, and they are trying to renew his current contract.
Yeah.
So I guess it will be a negotiation thing. I don't see him leaving at the end of the season. But eventually, I think he will want to go back to Spain.
That's never stopped Madrid from grabbing a player.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That
That's
is very true.
He's gonna go.
Eventually, yes.
We'll keep that hot take for the end of the season. We'll keep that hot take. Speaking about players with flair, and I think this is a discussion we've had off air. Now it's time to bring it on air. There's a bit of some call it gassy flavor, some call it showboating, and we see it a lot in local football. Does a little bit of flair off the ball, on the ball, have a place in football?
Personally, as a South African, I think it has a place because in the history of our football, our players that we praised a lot, like the likes of Dr. Khumalo, Jabu Pule, we produce a lot of entertainers.
Yeah.
And
Skarababes.
and at the end of the day, football is a showbiz. It's showbiz. It's entertainment.
No, for sure, yeah.
And sometimes you have to look at what your market wants.
But I've got two questions. As an athlete, or if you're playing on my team and you showboat, there's two things. If you lose the ball,
Yes.
and if you're not moving forward, you're not breaking the
Yes.
advantage line, then what's the point?
So-
Those are two significant things that I go. You can showboat going forward, my man, as long as you get us space.
So like I said, these players that I mentioned, the likes of Dr. Khumalo, they've gone to play. Obviously, it's difficult to play overseas in the early 90s.
Yeah.
But you find that these players have. Jomoson has played alongside Pele with that gassy flavor.
For sure.
So it depends how it's done. Because if it's done, if there's productivity, if there's
Breaking that advantage line.
advantage
Yeah.
line, it's creating chances, then there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
You
I've
must
got
have a hot
a
take. Yeah, this
different,
one-
I've
one
got a
hot
completely
take.
different outlook on this.
BT,
Yes.
our national team has not qualified for a World Cup since 2002. We've got PSL top goal scorer doesn't get to double digits. We've got our football IQ is zero, and we're out here talking about dribbling. We can't be talking about dribbling. There's more pressing issues in South African soccer. We need to teach our players football fundamentals, like how do you move off the ball. We can't be talking about dribbling. I mean, these guys do it in garbage time when the game is won, it's fine. But we can't be making it a staple diet and say, gassy flavor. Where has it taken us in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
Our football is stinking up. I mean, we can't be talking about dribbling, guys. Come on.
Another problem that I've seen a lot with people who see the negative side of gassy flavor or showboating is that you can't pinpoint our football problems on showboating. The fact that players don't have is development at the end of the day. So you can't, because that's lazy thinking that if you stop showboating, all our problems are
BT,
solved.
we know that our players are skillful, but do we win anything? We don't win. Let's talk about how we're going to get to winning soccer. We can't be talking about gassy flavor and dribbling when there's glaring flaws within our soccer. And part of the flaws is scoring.
Yeah.
We don't have scorers. We don't even have players in the top 5 leagues in Europe. We don't have any player in the English in the Premier League. In Spain, we don't have any players. We're not producing enough players. We're not coaching up to that. We can't be talking about gassy flavor and dribbling guys. Come on.
It's kind of in between both of you in terms of, I think there's a time and place for it. I think to BT's point, in garbage time, using your analogy, that is the perfect time to show your skills.
The crowd,
We saw, I think there was a game recently or a couple of years back where I think it was Sundowns, they were giving Kaizer Chiefs a very good hiding. And they kept the ball, but in keeping the ball, what they were doing was they were showboating. So that's an example of where it can be acceptable. I'm personally, I'm not a fan. I'm very much in Dumas Bolton that we've got bigger problems in South Africa than worrying about, you know, keeping the essence of what the Kasi flavor is about. So I guess, I think you need to focus on the fundamentals and the basics so that we can start to develop better players. Better players will go to Europe. And ultimately, once we get that right, then you can start to think about things like, you know, how do we bring entertainment back to the game? Because at the end of the day, I don't think people went to the stadiums to see Kasi flavor. They went to see entertaining football. And if that so happened at the end of the game that there was a bit of showboating by the team that's winning, then so be it.
Then it's a complete package.
Yeah.
I think those are the kind of hot takes we like on Beyond the Final Whistle, when we don't fully agree with each other. Let's keep that for the next segment, maybe, and I think we'll come back to it in future when we've developed some future strikers with a bit of flair and gassy flavour.
That's it.
Right, the naysayers are already calling England useless, they're calling them average, but I think it's just a little bit of fatigue. They've lost their second game in the Six Nations, and with that, Ireland win the Six Nations. Obviously, there's still another round of games to be played, but I think the way it stands, Ireland will win. But I think Duma has his own take on Eddie Jones and England losing their second game.
Are we sure if England is good people? Because we've seen now for 2 games them taking a beating. But what happened to England reminds me of a boxer, Roy Jones Jr. In his second fight with Antonio Tarver, he got knocked out cold. And in his very next fight against Glenn Johnson, he got chased for 10 and got knocked out again. And it happened to Spain as well in the World Cup in Brazil a couple of years ago. They got mauled by the Dutch, 5-1. The next game they lost to Chile, 2-1. So I think England are still groggy from that squad defeat. And it shows in their play. But I've always said, even on this show, that England are a very safe team. They're not the most dynamic of rugby teams. That's why it's so easy to beat them. And yesterday...
They've never been, though. They've never been.
They don't have the flair players. They don't have centers that scare you, that can break the line and create space for their wingers. So they're getting shown up.
But they'll be what I usually refer to as a military team. They'll do what they have to do and do it, execute what they have to do well. And under Eddie Jones, they'll have those skill sets to do it. They'll be fit enough to do it. They'll have the playbook to do it, and they will just go about a normal game plan and win.
So they're like a Jake White team.
If you must.
But then again, if you watch this, I watched the whole game. I mean, Northern Hemisphere rugby is set piece pace, a lot of nothing dynamic, nothing that jumps off the screen to say that's a lovely play. So, and then again, there's a Eddie Jones effect. I mean, we've sort of overrated England because of Eddie Jones coming to because he's changed the culture and everything. But I haven't seen anything from England that is going to scare me in next year's World Cup. And we obviously, if you lose 2 games in a row, especially to Scotland and France, teams who are below England, you're going
to look at you and say,
you're going to ask questions.
Yeah.
And the questions are: Is England that good? I don't think they're that good.
Maybe a little bit of fatigue setting in.
What fatigue? They play in this. There's no fatigue. There's no fatigue element. They got beaten up by the Scots, and they came in. They're still a bit dizzy, and the French took advantage of that. And the French played them very well. As much as Eddie Jones was defiant after the game against Scotland, saying, "Yeah, we've learned from our mistakes."
The next game is always where you show it.
The next game is you show it. I mean, Eddie Jones, the jury's out, guys. I mean, even what does he want? what has he won? He took over a team, the Brumbies, that was coached by Rod McQueen, and he succeeded. And when he coached Australia, he lost in the final against England. And we haven't seen anything. He went to the Jap leagues, he coached at Saracens, nothing to show. And yet he's touted as a great coach.
Yes.
So
I've got questions.
2019 World Cup.
Yeah, is it not a case of Eddie Jones came into the England setup at the right time for his own image, in that they were almost at rock bottom when Eddie Jones came and took over.
So anything
that he did improved on what had happened over the past kind of 3 to 4 years, if you can call it that. I mean, yes, they made the final. Well, actually, they didn't make the final, but England, certainly pre or before Eddie Jones, were not the force that they were, for instance, under Clive Woodward. We know there was a long period between Woodward and Eddie Jones, but the standards had dropped to such a level that it was easy for Eddie Jones to structurally fix a few things, and that helped them to get back to a level of competition.
He was definitely a coaching upgrade. You are correct. That's what you say. He was a coaching upgrade to what they had before. I mean, they stole him from the Stormers. The Stormers had him signed, and then they stole him literally.
It
was in Cape Town, and they stole him, and he's changed the culture there, and you can see it. But if you look at England, what do they do well? Like Snack said, they do all the basics right, but are they as good as New Zealand? No, they're not as good as New Zealand. And that's the challenge.
Yeah. I think the verdict's out on Eddie Jones, and I think the next couple of months leading up to World Cup and World Cup will definitely be, the deciding.
Well, England come here to South Africa. I guess that's going to be
a
good test for.
But it's a test against a rugby team that would have just gone to the US, come back, new coach. I'm not sure it's a test that we can benchmark any of the two teams on at that time. But it's still a South African versus England test match will provide lots of entertainment.
If I'm Rassi looking at that, what happened yesterday in the last 2 weeks,
you're excited.
You're excited. You know you can beat them. I mean, Rassi now has to have a game plan. The game plan has been shown by the Scots and the French yesterday. You can break down England if you play faster than them and you make them chase the game. Because with them, they can't chase the game. So I think if I'm Rassi sitting wherever I'm sitting, I'm saying, this
team is beatable.
This team is beatable.
Jens, speaking of game plans, I think across any sport, one thing you do not do with 2 minutes to go and you have the ball is lose it. And I think yesterday the Lions versus Blues game left a lot of Lions fans unhappy simply because they had an opportunity to close that game out and they didn't. It's no excuse, it's sacrilege as they call it, to lose from that position they were at halftime as well.
I think the Lions were in a winning position up until the 75th minute ultimately in that game. They didn't play the best rugby. And I think the way the game ended it's one of those games where you walk away and you say, actually the better team actually won as far as I'm concerned. But to your point, you can't lose possession with 2 minutes to go, especially against the New Zealand sides, because you know they are going to run it back at you. They are going to keep the ball for long phases. So I guess it was it's a cardinal sin in any sport. You can't lose the ball with 2 minutes to go.
Do you know what happened in that game, Stex? The crowd actually, the Lions had the ball and they were in a position to score. So the crowd was behind them. They didn't look at the clock to say there's 2 minutes left. Let's keep the ball and finish the game. They got excited. They almost scored. That turned the ball over.
And you don't need a captain to do that. I mean, in a team of 15 men, you've got leaders who's going to say, guys, hold on, look at the clock. Let's keep the ball. Conservatively, we're going to win this. Even if you're not playing well, there's some games you just have to close out on the day and take the points and go back to the drawing board for the next week. I mean, those guys were 28-10 in the 50th minute.
That's correct.
So how do you lose from that position?
It's bad clock management. I mean, in a game like that, it's bad clock. You need to manage the clock in any sport, especially a game like rugby. You need to know, okay, now, when we've got a scrum or let's keep for the line out possession. The Lions got excited. It's inexperienced. They got excited. They thought, okay, we're going to close this goal, finish this game, and then they coughed up the ball. And then the Blues took the ball and they scored. They did what they had to do. But when a team like that, when you get excited in a situation like that, that costs them the game.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'm not going to gloat a little bit. I am going to gloat a little bit. Sharks are the only South African team to have won this weekend.
Okay.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll wrap that segment up. And as I said, Sharks are the only team to win this weekend. We'll see the next week's fixtures and who will come up trumps. Right, F1 testing is done and the tyres are burning and teams are heading over to Australia for the first Grand Prix. Testing is over, guys, and I think we've seen the same thing we see in testing year on. 3 top teams, Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull. I think there wasn't much in them. There was a few fastest laps from Ferrari. We saw Mercedes looking good in the first couple of rounds. As they head on to Australia, who are you looking to see this season? Who do you think is gonna surprise us?
Well, I mean, to your point, testing doesn't give you the real picture because there's just so much that's up in the air. First of all, you don't know what fuel loads everyone is on. So the 3 fastest laps, I think in the 1 minute 17s, was 2 by Ferrari and actually 1 by McLaren Renault, funny enough. But I think it's quite ominous that Mercedes were able to do a number of, I guess, race simulations over the 2 test, windows or phases. They were consistently fast. No one could touch them on the long runs.
Yeah.
And again, ominously for me, Mercedes didn't ever use the new ultra soft tyre. So all 3 of the guys who set times that were in the 1 minute 17s used this new ultra soft compound. And Mercedes didn't even bother to use it. So for me, that is a sign that they know they've got the pace. They certainly have shown that they've got race pace over 40, 50 laps. The car didn't break down once over 8 days. So they do look imperious, I must be honest. Ferrari looked like they are second fastest.
They were, yeah.
And I think for Ferrari, just like last season, Mercedes have been so good over the past 3 years. They often almost force Ferrari to show their hand during testing. For me, going on to ultra soft and making headlines during testing is a sign that maybe they want to make a statement, but Mercedes are kind of like, we're not going to show you guys just how fast we are until qualifying 2 in Australia.
Do Red Bull have the car to match the drivers? Because we know Max Verstappen, great driver, young driver. We know Ricciardo is also a very good driver. But they've been let down by the car slightly in the last couple of seasons.
Well, the Red Bull situation is a bit tricky in that, they don't actually have their own engine supplier. So they rely on Renault to provide engines for them. Aerodynamically, there's absolutely no doubt the Red Bull is up there with the Ferrari and the Mercedes. The problem is that they are down on horsepower. That's the reality. So during the season, they might be able to find some pace, but until they have their own engine supplier, during this phase of Formula One where engines are the most important thing, it's going to be very difficult for them to deliver on a world championship.
Right, heading to Australia, first Grand Prix, who's your money on?
I've got to go with Mercedes. It's very difficult to go with anyone else. I know Ferrari will be up there, but there's so much that can happen between now and Australia. We've seen what the cars look like in testing. We've seen how fast some of them are, there's still going to be quite a bit of development before you get to Australia. Qualifying 2, as they always say, is where you see who's fast and who's not. It's that simple.
Cool. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we heard a bit of Formula One there. I think Duma will keep his piece on the Formula One piece. Not a man of many words when it comes to Formula One, Duma.
I watch it, guys. Formula One is interesting. It's predictable enough, They change the rules every year. I'm rooting for Ferrari this year. I think somebody needs to upset Lewis Hamilton. He's been having it easy for the last couple of years. That's
a sign of a dominant guy. No? Let him dominate. If he dominates for the next 10 years, so be it. He's
a top driver, I have to say. A top driver, you judge by how he drives in the rain.
Yes.
When it rains, you can see how dominant he gets. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he's good in qualifying. Top guy. I think he'll probably break Michael Schumacher's record if he stays with the same team. I think there might be a move to Williams pending, maybe if Williams fixes the car issues. So, because that's probably his home, Williams. So.
Let's touch on a sport that you do watch. It's a bit of boxing. We've seen some interesting reports come out of this week in Canelo. I think he's been a doping allegation. Now, as far as I know, and my background as an athlete, what you ingest, you're responsible. Whether it came from your mom, your aunt, your dog, the meat that you ate that dinner, but you're responsible, ultimately responsible for whatever you ingest. And he says it from contaminated meat that he ate.
Look, contaminated meat, what, nothing was going to stop that fight. There's a few prize fights that happen these days. And Canelo Triple G captured our imagination last year. And nothing's going to stop that fight. There's too much invested in that fight. May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. And those are the kinds of fights we wake up in the morning.
Yeah, for sure.
So he provided a valid explanation as far as what is concerned. I mean, and what he did was he changed his training camp from Mexico to the US because apparently the meat comes from Mexico.
Yes.
And it's apparently it's a known thing that when you eat that meat, you exude whatever that substance was
in the process.
Yeah. So, but the bottom line is there's a lot of money invested in that fight. That fight was never getting called off for that. And the middleweight division is one of those flagship divisions in boxing, like heavyweight and welterweight. You don't want to miss a middleweight fight.
For sure.
Over the years, if you remember, Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Robertson, Roy Jones was a middleweight.
Made their name.
Made their name. The middleweight is a flagship division where you can't. And Triple G over the years has dominated. And Canelo is the incumbent middleweight champion. And
so that this doesn't taint that fight at all.
So I guess that was going to be my next question: is if Canelo, say, theoretically knocks him out in round 4, will it not taint any result that is positive in his favor off the back of this? I don't know if this substance is performance enhancing or not. I just know that it's been banned. But do you not think there's now going to be? I guess it depends on what the result is.
What your result is,
Guys, I don't think it's going to taint anything. The first fight was controversial as it is. This is the return fight. Remember, everybody was split down the middle on who won and who lost. I mean, I thought Canelo won, but it's the debate for another day. This fight is more important. I think Canelo wants to be the middleweight king, and Triple G has been there. He has never been battle tested at middleweight. He hasn't fought a lot of great middleweights. This is probably Canelo's Triple G's toughest opponent. So this fight is going to captivate the imagination of even people who don't even follow boxing. They'll watch this fight.
Wake up in the morning.
Which is why it's not even what causes testosterone. It's not even that hectic. Maybe you know Snacks what it is.
I actually don't know what substance it is, but you know.
I mean, when I saw it, I was like, wow. It's one of those. It's one of those things.
All right. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll wait till the morning of the fight. As Duma said, a lot of us will wake up and be excited about that fight.